to the guy who wrote the book on how democracies die and erode, Ben Rhodes, I mistakenly chalked a lot of it, what the Republicans have done, up to reflexive fealty to Trump, fear of the tweet. There's something somewhere more strategic than that, because this is the pathway to ending democracy. And as someone who's sort of been shouting from the rooftops for many years now, I wonder what you make of this new reporting in the New York Times.
Well, I think it's entirely consistent with what we've seen happening around the world. And I think what's clear to me is that the Trump people are not only learning from his first term, where he didn't kind of put in place his most virulent autocratic henchman until the end of the administration, but they've studied the playbook in other places. And if you look at what's been done in places like, say, Hungary, where Viktor Orban's been a model for the American right in a lot of ways, he eviscerated the independence of government. Everybody reported to him and served his agenda. That allowed for him to exert a tremendous amount of control over every aspect of Hungarian political life. That allowed for a tremendous amount of corruption, where he was enriching cronies who were then kind of financing his politics and making sure that no opposition emerged to him. And he was weaponizing the tools of the state to go after critics of him and his party. So whether they're in civil society or whether they're journalists. And that's exactly what's happening here. This is all in plain sight. And this is a playbook that has been used in many other countries. We Americans like to think that these things don't happen here. What we saw on January 6th is anything can happen here. And if he has the sanction and the validation of an election, there is absolutely no reason to think that he won't do these things here. And we've also seen Republicans use state legislatures as laboratories to test these things out and to give governors greater executive power or to take power away from Democratic governors. This is something that they've been working towards for years now. This is what the 2024 election is all about. Is this the kind of single party autocracy that we want to risk having under a Donald Trump, or do we still believe in checks and balances in the American system of democracy?
And let me do something, again, I try not to do very often unless totally necessary. Let me play you what Trump is running on doing, in his own words, from podiums, with cameras in the back, out loud and proud.
We are a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. And now these radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections by using law enforcement. It's totally corrupt, and we won't let it happen. 2024 is our final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, fascists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country. And we will rout the fake news media. We will defeat crooked Joe Biden, and we will drain the swamp once and for all.
So, Ben Rhodes, I stopped being a Republican for a lot of reasons. But I worked Republican administration, as you know what that's like. You forge real friendships in the trenches. They're the people at your wedding. They're the people there when you face a tragedy. But the reason I stopped being a Republican, first and foremost, is because people I love dearly say and do nothing when that happens. That is not even someone flirting with autocracy. That is someone deep in the tank of delusions and propaganda. And I searched high and low. I didn't find anyone, any elected Republicans in the House or the Senate, rebuke those comments. And, you know, we'll see. Chris Christie is running against him. Bill Barr came out and made a star turn as a witness for the January 6th House Select Committee. But I've looked everywhere today, and I haven't found anyone rebuking what are not just lies, but dangerous lies that, as Katie just said, I mean, as a journalist, you have to stay open to the possibility that this will come to pass and this plan will be put into action if he's reelected. It will be the fault of, and sort of the blood of our dead democracy will be on the hands of elected Republicans who said and did nothing.
Yeah, Nicole, there's something really chilling here. Two things I'd highlight. One, that's just straight up strongman, autocratic, us versus them, fascistic rhetoric, right? I mean, that you could put those words in the mouths of any number of autocrats from the 20th century or Vladimir Putin today. The dehumanization of his opponents and the intention of using government to punish his opponents, that's one big flashing light. The other is he's tied up his own personal fate with this election, right? It's all or nothing. This election may be the thing necessary to keep him out of prison, right? So this is existential for Trump, and he's making no effort to hide his fundamentally autocratic intentions. And the other thing that you see in any system of government that shifts from a democracy to an autocracy is at some point along the way, there have to be enablers. There have to be politicians or business people, people that decide, you know what, I know this is wrong, but it's easier to go along than it is to stand up to it. It's easier to kind of maybe take my little piece on the back end of the autocracy than risk everything within my political clique by standing up to it, as people like you have, Nicole. This is not about whether we have differences about the size of government or how much taxes there should be or whether this foreign policy is better than that. This is about whether we're a democracy. And he's standing up and saying, my agenda that I'm running for president to do is to dismantle American democracy and make it a tool of my personal interest to punish my enemies. That's where we're at. And anybody who doesn't see that has been willfully blind for the last 6 years and doesn't really seem to believe enough in what this country is supposed to represent to do anything about it.
Well, and for him to be taking after a group that includes Liz Cheney, a conservative's conservative, Bill Barr, who did more to aid him at the Justice Department than probably anyone in our country's history. Chris Christie, a long time. I mean, it isn't a right-left choir. And I have one more for you, Ben. I mean, I think the mistake that people like Rupert Murdoch might be making right now is thinking it won't happen to us. But Trump can turn on a dime. And the notion that taking over the agencies that control the airwaves, which is also in this reporting that he wants to exert presidential control and power over that, it doesn't mean that anyone will be spared. He could wake up on the wrong side of the bed, read something true or false on social media, and turn on anyone. And I wonder what you think about the fact that there's such a lack of bipartisan, cross sort of civic, cultural and business life reaction to this reporting.
Well, I think there's something kind of numbing about Trump. You know, he normalizes extreme behavior. But the reality is, of course he goes after the broadcasting. Of course he's going to want to get his hands on that. I mean, Vladimir Putin, when he came to power, made some deals with some oligarchs who owned some TV stations. And within a period of years, he controlled those TV stations and those oligarchs were in exile, right? These people think that because they are powerful, that they can manage the autocrat. And I think that is a severe mistake that people like Rupert Murdoch have made, right? He managed that situation all the way to January 6th. And that was something that people probably thought could never happen here. I think we have to condition our imaginations to be able to see the future that Donald Trump is telling us that he wants. This is the Trump presidency picking up on January 7th. That's what the inaugurational day will be. It'll be the Trump presidency from the day after the insurrection. That's what he wants to do. Now, I think we see a much greater awareness in this country, certainly than in 2016, and maybe even than in 2020. And Americans have stood up across ideological spectrum in the last 3 national elections, and in one form or another rejected this kind of extremism. This is really the final play, because this is the last turn of the crank for Donald Trump. And I think we need more people to step forward who haven't yet, or else it's going to be way too close for comfort heading into the election.